Yo, what's up guys, I'm Fire here, back from the video, and today we're going to be hopping into another Madden 23 scheme video. Now today we're going to be bringing you guys Henry's championship gun tight slot tap back week offense. Now we've done a couple of videos in the past with Henry, but this one's going to be out of a new formation. Generally he's that bunch guy, but here we got the tight slot tap back week, which he ran perfectly in the Madden 23 wildcard, which I'm sure a lot of you guys watched. And once again, for these videos, I just get these clips from the games. There's no buying of ebooks or anything like that. Just like to, preface that before the video, because sometimes you get accused. Now, I do have a written version. You guys are always asking for the written versions. We do have the written version for this one. It's going to be down below, pinned in the comment section, the link to that. Those are very helpful. Now they're written in Xbox. You can copy and paste, search and replace those to PlayStation, and they're all written based on the running back being on the left side, because of course things would change if he was on the right side. Keep that in mind. Also, before we get into the video, make sure you guys drop a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, because these videos do take a lot of time, a lot of work. So if you could subscribe, that would be very helpful for the boys. And yeah, overall, let's jump straight into it. Now, beginning with a couple of things, the first thing we're going to mention is going to be the playbook. It is the Cincinnati Bengals offensive playbook. Of course, you have a really good bunch with this. And then you have the tight slot tap back week, which you will probably see a lot more of in the future. Now, tight slot tap back week, you do want hot route master for this. That is the only ability that you necessarily need, but it is a key one. Now, audibles, we're going to go ahead, hop into those, and we definitely want this play called flood in. That's really the main play of the offense. You can really just keep everything else that's already in it, inside zone, 4 verts, and mesh spot. So again, pretty simple. There's only really 4 plays that were ran, and it's overall not super complicated, which I'm sure you guys will enjoy. We're going to begin with flood though, and for video's sake, we're just going to go up against like a cover 3. Now he played against mainly zone in the championship. These clips are only from one game, so if he did run something else against someone else, you guys can also add that to the offense. Now, I'm going to move it just a little bit inside to give us a little bit more room to work with on that right-hand side. Now, starting out, we have this play that's going to be flood. Now, again, the ebook's written like from the perspective that the running back's on the left side once again. So for your first flood setup, what you're going to do is go ahead and throw A on a corner route. Then you're going to put B on an out route and RB on a Texas route. So here's going to be the setup. Overall, it looks kind of chaotic in the middle of the field, but if you just go through every kind of progression there, you should be able to fit in some windows, complete some passes, and again, these plays should work against really every single coverage. He does a really nice job of creating these setups that work not only against things like zone, but if you happen to be in man coverage, they should work against that as well. So that is going to be your first setup. Now, we're going to try and go through relatively quick. Preserve your guys' time, being considerate of that, because there's a decent amount of setups, not as many as there might have been in the past, but there's still a good amount of setups. So read one, kind of you have that high-low on this right side of the out route and the other route. Next is going to be the running back. The running back's almost always going out on a route. I think he actually is always going out on a route in this offense. If you're facing pressure, the mindset is just to get rid of the ball fast rather than block and wait for these routes to develop. So keep that in mind. Now, get some bigger body receivers. There's going to be situations with these corner routes and other things where you may have to click on. That's fine, but you see going through kind of the reads there, and then in the middle of the field you got your boy Mike Evans. So that's a nice first play. He actually ran that play a number of times throughout the game, probably 4 or 5. That's going to be your first setup. Hopping into setup number 2, what you're going to do here is put A on a corner route. You're going to slant B. This is a play he actually ran on a 4th down. So you're going to slant B. You're going to put Y on a post route, and then you're actually going to motion out Rashad White. Now, when you motion him out, you're going to send him to the opposite side. This is a concept that actually both players use. So Mr. Football used this concept a lot if you watched that last game. Same with Henry, of course, in this instance. But here's a look at the setup. So you have a nice little slant. And he is just really good at making these split-second decisions, watching the user and throwing it to the other guy. So maybe I watch B, fire it over to Y. So if you're throwing that post, generally you want to use that high ball. Russell Gage is a smaller receiver, and he's able to actually make that play for us. So nice right there. Again, motioning out that guy. And for the most part, there's not a lot of motion out of this formation, which usually is nice as well. So here again, just a little slant route to Godwin. Preferably your players aren't getting bumped around as well. So now again, he didn't really run the setup too much necessarily to where I think it's super important to show it, but or show it multiple times, but it was ran. Again, probably highball that or just throw it to someone else. Again, showing the different reads, but that's going to be your setup number 2. Now, setup number 3 is going to be same play. You're just going to streak X, streak A, and put B on a corner out. So here's a look at the setup. 2 streaks, never a bad thing in the middle of the field. And again, even though there's only a certain amount of plays or maybe less setups than bunch or something, if you're able to mix between these plays, keep things fresh, the adjustments for each of these plays is going to be different to where you almost certainly should be able to catch them off guard. So here, you just got 2 streaks down the seams. You have your tight end 1 who should be getting a lot of action. Get Taysom Hill or whoever you want to use. And then you have like a Mike Evans type. So also he keeps this table route in a couple of the setups, which is actually pretty nice. This table route does a decent job of getting open. So it certainly can create a high-low between that corner out and the flat to where maybe you're able to do that. Now, something he does, especially against those thirds, if you don't want to motion out the streak, you just click on, kind of undercut that zone to where he doesn't get the interception and you're able to get a better animation and catch the ball without, colliding with the other guy. So I'm definitely a fan of that concept. Over there on the right, if it happens to be man coverage, Godwin's going to cook on his route. Again, zone, kind of iffy, but you see you can get separation if Darius Slay doesn't turn into Superman or whatever he just did. Maybe if you have a little bit of more space. And again, you don't always have to run it on the wide side. You can run this on the short side, and you can also flip the formation. You don't have to keep the running back up the left side either. Anyways, hopping into another setup. What we're going to do here is we're going to throw Y on a slant. We are going to put A on a little out route and B on a post. So here's a look at the setup. This is a setup that I think he only ran either once or twice. He also runs this out of mesh spot. So you have a concept in a couple of different plays, but this is a nice little mesh post. I like to call it a mesh post concept. This one even more so because you have a deeper post going over the top. Just gives you another read, but really what you want to do here is kind of decide between the slant and the post in most cases. Sure, there's situations where maybe the out route gets open and covers 0, or maybe this flat gets open. If you want to quick snap throw it in 4th and 1, you can pick up like 5 yards, or we picked up 8 yards. So you could do that. But generally, if you're playing a good player, it'll usually be between Y and B. So make your choice. In his game, it was usually B. The user would take Y. Again, in most cases, it's going to be the user choosing between, not necessarily like the stock cover 3 look where you notice that there's 2 zones where it just looks a little bit weirder maybe, but you can like throw this little out route. I'll throw the slant also, but just giving yourself some options with these plays. And a lot of these are actually really fast to set up. 3 hot routes and you can kind of snap in your business to where you can definitely catch people off guard or in an adjustment if you're able to get those hot routes out before you have to go to the line and start pointing. So that's going to be that next setup. Moving on, we got another one where we're going to actually streak our B. We're going to put A on a corner out. We are going to smart out A. We're going to, I have to move to kind of see my spreadsheet, but we're going to streak B. Then we're actually going to motion out B. So here's a look at the setup. I think he ran this right before half. But this setup is definitely not bad. So here's a look. Once again, might be a little bit confusing, but you notice how the corner out maybe wasn't getting enough depth. Just smart routing it will help. It takes longer to develop, but it should certainly help over there on that right side. If you get the time, you notice that he will do his job and get open against most cover 2s and cover 3s. Zone drops this year, not necessarily the best to where I'm too afraid about that. So this is once again a look, and don't sleep on this post route with Evans. It seems like he's running deep, but you can certainly kind of throw it as a seam route or right on break, and he can undercut the free safety, or if it's a deep half, he can undercut all of them. So, certainly don't want to sleep on that route, but this is a case where we use motion. I don't know if there's another situation where we motion out that receiver, but just keeping things simple. I am kind of a fan of that streak as far as just quick snapping it, so I don't hate that concept. I'm just going to run it quickly without motioning out so you can see it, but just this little concept, you'll see us go back to that in a different play, but overall pretty solid setup. Anyways, we're going to move on to our last setup out of Flood, and again, the only other two plays really like 2 setups each, so we're moving along pretty well, I'd say. And our last setup out of this Flood play is going to be to post this B wide receiver. We're going to streak Y, and then we're going to put X on a corner route. So here is a look at your setup. It does look a little bit jumbled up. It's kind of intended to look that way, but once the play actually starts, this guy doesn't run as fast. He's going to run slower. And then again, the corner out and the post will obviously not really be running to the same area, we know. So it's just giving yourself a couple of options. And again, with that corner out, even more so than I did there, click on either stop the route or undercut, and you should have pretty good success. Once again, that setup, post B, streak Y, corner X. You could really run it vice versa, but that would just create a little bit more commotion. I think what he just did is either snap through to the running back or snap through the drag. Generally, if you can, you want to avoid the situations of being forced to throw the corner out. So I think he actually threw the post, if I remember correctly, just backside like right there. In this situation, we have to wait a little bit longer, but against like a user, you would probably either throw it almost as a streak or again, right on break, kind of the same way you do with that deeper post. So just giving yourself some options. We love the play. And yeah, let me know if you guys want to see a gameplay on this as well, since I do think it'll be good. I would probably be posting more videos on it, so let me know. But next play is going to be mesh spot. And our first setup for this is going to be a simple mesh post concept. We're going to flat X, put A on an out route, post B, and slant Y. So this is kind of the same thing with Flood, only we're eliminating having the deep post and this guy on a flat. So 2 different routes. This is a play that he ran, I think, the first play of the game and the first play in the half, just snap throwing this wheel route. I feel like it's a little bit better of a wheel route than the hot route one that you do. So I am a fan of that. But again, didn't really run this play too much besides that, but not a terrible concept. You know, sometimes just this mesh post to mesh spot concept has been a staple in Henry's offense for years. The years that I've been doing these types of videos, I think since maybe Madden 20, probably Madden 21, he's ran this concept more than anyone I can ever remember. Just this mesh post concept. It's been a bread and butter of him, and why shouldn't it be? No one can really stop it. Now there we get a little bit unlucky with the receiver getting bumped down the field, which should be a flag. I'm referring to Godwin, by the way. But if he does run his route, again, he's like getting bumped by that dude to where he's like running square. You should be able to get over the top. Again, kind of pretend that right linebacker is either lurking down on the slant to where one of those guys is going to be open. If not, you have your wheel or quick out if you need it. So don't be too parched on that. But overall, nice concept. Again, we showed it out of Flood. So let's go ahead and move on to our second mesh spot setup. And with this setup, what we're going to do is we're going to put X on a post route. We are going to put A on a corner route, and we're just going to fade B. So this is a look at the setup. Pretty interesting look. It's more or less a Flood concept, but you do have the wheel route on the opposite side. So I do like this look. Once again, what's he expecting with this play consistently, or this formation? He's expecting Godwin to be on the post. You'll see Godwin also on a different route, I think, out of the next play. But he's on, corner routes. He's on out routes. Now he's on streaks and posts. So you don't really know what direction he's going. It's difficult to read. And then you could have corner routes going to the left deep. You could have corner routes now going to the right. It's difficult to read, but overall, just a solid play. You can easily make that high-low read with Gage and the tight end. We'll throw it to the tight end next play. If it's press man-to-man coverage, or if he's manning up our boy Chris Godwin in this situation, what you can actually do is sometimes catch him off guard, highball that. Who knows what the case is. There you see able to hit Mike Evans on that backside post. Again, that would be a route that I doubt him to be expecting Mike Evans a lot of time. Again, he's on this deep post for majority of the time. Occasionally you throw him on that fade, so putting him on this route can almost certainly catch him off guard, which is never a bad thing. So Y's already on a drag, so you can leave him on that. But let's see the difference of hitting Cameron Brate. You really got to wait and probably highball it. It's difficult to do. Again, feel free to smart out it if you need to. He didn't necessarily do that, but again, he was also playing a different player than stock cover 3. So again, just because these plays aren't working against this coverage in practice mode, not many people are sitting in stock cover 3. I'm just not going to go through the liberties of, doing whatever or audibling to something different every time. Sorry, I got confused with the setups, but there it is again. And once more, you can quick snap throw to the wheel. Now, one thing that I didn't actually talk about that Henry did this whole game is, and I'm going to bring it up now, is the audibling thing. He came out a bunch on every single play. That's credit to him. It's just not something I'm going to do in practice mode. It's going to take too much time. But, if you're running in game, you want to play like a pro player, feel free to come out in whatever and then audible to tight slots. It can just throw off your opponent because he has to play the bunch, whether he likes it or not. So it's just going to make him do more adjustments. The more adjustments that you have to do, the more likely your opponent is to mess up somewhere, leave something open. And again, it's going to be in a situation if you audible so much that he's already setting up his defense for slots before you audible to it, and that's when you run like a quick verticals play or something and completely catch him off guard. Now, Henry ran a couple of bunch plays in that last game. He didn't run too many necessarily, but he did run a couple, and it probably caught Mr. Football off guard. So that's kind of a concept that you would like to go to. It can be a pain, trust me, but it can actually pay off if you're playing a real sweater, and I don't hate doing it against those guys. Now, for verticals, we got 2 setups. This first setup that he ran a significant amount of times, a lot of times, so that cannot be understated. You want to run it a lot. And with this setup, you're going to hitch B, cross X, and all you're going to do is streak RB. This is the setup. Kind of an interesting look, but it does work out. Now, he never threw it to these wheel routes, but what they are really good space creators. They can also be open potentially if you want to throw it like that. Realistically, better animation there, but they could be open for that. Keep that in mind. But generally with this play, the guy that was usually open was one of 2 guys, Mike Evans or Rachaad White. Late play, Chris Godwin could of course be open, but usually it was just deciding between 2 people. Now, what routes have Rachaad White been on? We've talked about a couple of players like Godwin being on his corner route, post route, out route, just all fade route, just all the different things with him. Now, what's Rachaad White been on? He's been on the flat, he's been on the angle route, he's been on the wheel, and now he's been on the streak. So 4 different routes with him. Manning him up really wouldn't do anything. So that's where you can catch people off guard with the streak, especially if they're heavy zone coverage guys. So here's the setup once again. We just hit Mike Evans. Now we're going to try with Rachaad White. Right there's the window, and you see there's enough space between the 2. You can't defend both. You either are lurking back to the streak. It's pretty easy to tell if you see that streak open. If he's overcommitted on the wheel or whatever, or on the crosser, just hit the streak. You don't want to get into those late play situations, especially where Mike Evans might cross over to the numbers, because that is when you're going to step up in the pocket and probably take a sack. So you want to throw it either here or don't throw it at all. In that case, you would hope to get the ball in the running back's hands by then. So that's going to be your first setup. I'm going to actually maybe show a kind of a late play situation, see if we can get something to look like that. You have A over there. So late play situations, you see, maybe you hit that tight end on the sidelines. Certain cases, maybe you are able to hit the crosser. But again, most people, we're probably getting shedded by then. So, and again, a lot of the situations, people are blitzing, so there's less coverage on the field. Even if people are running zone coverage, they're blitzing majority of times out of it to where the streak route should be open, and it should just be a hot read. Boom, I read the field, read his user, and we're throwing it to the crosser or the streak. Simple enough. So that's setup 1. We got one last setup, and then I'll talk about maybe inside zone a little bit. He didn't really run the ball. He's not a runner, but we can talk about it a little bit. Now with 4 verts, last setup, what we're going to do is just fade B. We're going to cross X and streak RB. So same thing. Biggest difference is we have a fade route. I think he maybe ran this in the red zone if I remember correctly, but you just have a fade instead of a hitch. Probably a little bit better spacing, and it gives him more of a threat, potentially. Get a big body there. Godwin, not really that aggressive catch kind of a guy, but you see how he could be open. It's definitely a window. and against heavy coverage, you saw it there. It doesn't really affect this crosser either, which is nice. If he wants to use the fade, then you would have two guys open to where if you make the bad read, then that's really a personal problem. But I accidentally put Rashad White on a different route. That combo is actually not terrible though. But again, you can mix it up with your own setups as well. I posted videos on this formation in the past couple of years to where you guys could definitely take from that. Or maybe you don't even have to, maybe you don't actually have to fade Chris Godwin. He might already be on the fade, so I'll probably take that out of the ebook by the time you're watching this video. He actually is on a fade, so I'm tripping. You don't have to fade him. This is just actually a very good quick snap setup. But he actually loved the streaks out a bunch. One thing about Henry, he loved the streaks out a bunch. So it doesn't surprise me to see some streaks in some other plays. But overall, it's going to do a video, or actually no inside zone. So inside zone, I mean, there's not a lot to talk about. Short yardage, he ran it a couple of times if I remember correctly. If he's in dollar, don't be afraid to run the ball. Obviously, if you have a right-handed QB, it's kind of better to run it like this, so you get that faster handoff animation. For some reason, he was inept to continue to run it from the other side, which is slower animation. He just got shed twice in a row in that beginning of the game. First set of downs, actually, to where you see clearly a difference there. We get shedded. For second play, we didn't. Of course, we got Hassan Reddick over there, but not too good. One thing I love about his offense is that there's not a lot of confusing motion. Out of this formation, you can kind of get creative with like motioning this guy over and doing some different stuff. It's almost like a bunch or a cluster look rather. I'm glad he doesn't do that because that makes it more confusing for me and more confusing for you guys. But that's going to do the video. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you drop a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below. Leave a like, let me know who else you want to see, and peace. I'm out of here.